All right, so we're glad to have Max Ghenis here back, a repeat presenter here in PSL Demo Days. Max is founder and president of the UBI Center. He's before demoed to us the micro DF package, which he's a core maintainer of. And today he's going to show us how to use Black for code formatting. All right, Max, go ahead.
Thanks, Jason, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing a bit about a code formatting tool that I've been using within PSL projects and outside PSL. So what I'll do is I'll give a bit of a high-level overview of why I think this is important, and then I'll do a demo as well. So I'll share my screen now. Oh, I don't have a screen sharing. Jeez.
I'll add that right now, Max.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, sorry, I'm signing in on my computer so I can do this.
How long have you been using Black, Max?
I think, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
So not too long. I think Nikhil Woodruff, as with all my good, like new programming things I'm doing, he inspired me.
Okay, well, great. And have you found it a big time saver?
Yeah, definitely. Just not having to think about what kind of design decisions I want to do with my formatting. Even though I think over time I've gotten more into a concrete style, following PEP 8 and things like that. Mm-hmm. There are still some things where I'm like not exactly sure what PEP 8 would say, or where it might be ambiguous, and I just don't have to think about that anymore. Mm-hmm. I think it's also really good for like code reviews, because I don't have to think about nitpicking other people's stuff. So. Yeah, have you used a code formatter before?
I have not, no. You know, I get some joy of going over my code and just making sure I'm matching PEP 8, but like you, I do have those instances where there's some relatively rare case and I'm not sure what to do there. But I have kind of seen a need for it lately in terms of when I'm, if somebody is new, like I've got students who have done some work in PSL projects, and I try to, get them set up with like a text editor, introduce them to PEP 8 styling and so on. But, for new users, there's a lot to just get your head around. And it seems like this could be very nice for those cases to help them just get their code formatted, and they can think more about the content rather than just getting the formatting right.
Yeah, exactly. Linter, right, Jason?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I have a linter. I advise people to get it, but I'm not setting up their text editor for them, so they can be missing some things. And so I'm really interested to see this presentation. Max, it looks like you got your screen share working here. So I'll let you go ahead with that.
Yeah, cool. So, I think this is motivated by, I think it's good to program from a lazy perspective. So if you have a really difficult problem, if there's any chance that someone's done it, and if they've either got a script on Stack Overflow or a snippet on GitHub somewhere, or they have a Python package or R package, whatever your language is, it's much nicer to just use that and not rebuild the wheel. Same thing for your own programming. I've seen sometimes I'll be copy pasting code a bunch of times, and then if I write a loop or a function or a package for myself, it's going to save me time over time too. I think very similarly, if you're expending any mental energy on things that a computer can do for you as part of the programming process, I think it's nice to just let a computer do that and save your mental energy for other things. So there's a lot of code formatting decisions that people make as they are developing. So simple things like, should I use single or double quotes? Should I use like camel case or underscores with a variable name? Should I split different long lines of code? Where should I split them across multiple lines? Empty space, white space, both horizontally and vertically, plus a bunch of other things that I'm sure any of you who've done programming have just given thought to. And this becomes even more problematic when you start thinking about collaboration, which at PSL, that's definitely a big part of what we do. And so, do you want to design your code to be consistent with your own personal style or the style that someone who is also working on that project with you? So like, should they have hierarchy over you if they started the project and you are just joining it later? If you're doing a code review, do you want to say, well, I saw this, there should be an extra space here. And that seems like, especially if you're maybe a new contributor, could seem inappropriate to include that in your code review or in your pull request. And yeah, I think even within projects, sometimes, even if it's the same person, you might say, oh, did I format the code this way in some other module, but now actually maybe my own style has changed, so I'm going to try formatting it differently in this one. So all this just takes up mental energy. So something that a lot of languages have done is include style guides. So you don't have to think about this yourself from a personal perspective as much. You can just consult the guide. So for R, which is the language really I sort of started on, there's a tidyverse style guide. Google also has a style guide. There's a number of other style guides for R programming. There's a ton of style guides for JavaScript. I think Python, which is the main language we use at PSL, is kind of more centralized, which is nice. So there's one style guide called PEP8, and this is really the dominant style guide. Google has some minor tweaks on this as well for their own style guide. But PEP8, if you're doing Python programming, that sort of has all of the guidelines. So there's a number of apps for Python that will check your code style. So PyLint, Rick was just talking about this, is a tool where you can run it and it will throw basically errors if you have style deviations from the style guide from PEP8. So that's kind of nice. You can run that as a command line utility. There's also ways to integrate it into GitHub and other workflows. PEP8 Speaks, this is one I was using before as well. It'll actually drop a comment into your pull request if you have different lines that are not compliant with PEP8. So where PyLint you might do that through like a GitHub action or Travis or something. PEP8 Speaks does it within the pull request as a comment. And then there's also like online tools where you can just drop your code in and it'll tell you if it's compliant or not. And then there are code formatters, which take this a step further. So it doesn't just tell you what you've done wrong. It will actually automate some of those changes. So auto PEP8, PEP8ify, isort, YAP, which is from Google, yet another Python formatter. These are all code formatters that have a number of configurations. They do have defaults, but you might experience that some people use it with different configurations than you do, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. And I guess the style or the formatter I've been using is black, and that really doesn't have those configuration options, which I think is kind of nice because you never have to worry about being in sync with your collaborators. The only setting they have is line length. So 88 characters is the default. I've been using 79. I know some other folks in PSL use 88 or longer. I'm kind of open to changing that myself. But basically everything else is not modifiable. You can't change the indent length. You can't change the quote. You can't change the way that it enforces spaces, the way it sort of splits lines across multiple lines. So this is why they call it the uncompromising code formatter. Something we love, of course, at PSL is that it's open source on GitHub and it has documentation as well, which is pretty robust. And I'll actually go through that a little bit. There's a lot you can do with Black, both in terms of installing. You can install with pip or conda. We use conda a lot at PSL. And it also integrates into, sorry about my cat, into code editors. So VS Code, for example, is a code editor I use a lot myself. Jupyter Lab also for Jupyter Notebooks. You can do it within Jupyter Notebooks. Basically every other code editor that's common also has this. You can also call it from the command line. So if you want to run black, basically code format a bunch of files, you can do that for a specific file. You can do it for a directory of a bunch of files. And you can use it as a linter. So you don't have to just use Pepe, lint, PyLint, those kind of things. So you can hook that into GitHub Actions, and you can use it as what's called a pre-commit hook, where it makes sure that it is run before you even commit it to your repo. So I'll talk about all these in the demo as well, which I will get to now. So what I'm going to start with is running black from Jupyter, just because that's kind of the least integrated into the version control workflow. And then I'll use VS Code for it. I'll do the same thing in command line interface, and then we'll actually do a quick repo setup with a GitHub action as well. Okay, so I've got my Jupyter Lab open here. And of course, since we are the policy simulation library, I grabbed a random function that calculates a tax from a set of marginal tax rate incomes and tax bands. So there's some stuff that's okay in this function. Kind of ignore this for now. But like, there's maybe you might want some spaces around this minus here. There's not a space here, but there's a space there. You might maybe want some vertical white space here after the imports. There's all this weird spacing here that's kind of unclear why it does that. This line is quite long, so that might be a little bit too long. So in a normal workflow in my past life, maybe I would like go in and check each of these things, look at the, have a vertical dashed line to see if it's over the line length. And I would apply my OCD and like run a really thorough code review where I'm going through every specific thing that I think is wrong here. And that just, it feels productive, but it kind of wastes time. So in this case, I can just, once I've installed this black extension into Jupyter Lab, I just do format cell here, and it does it all for me. So this is pretty awesome. It added the 2 spaces here. It added spaces around the equal sign, around this here as well. And it just kind of immediately looks a lot nicer, and you can undo and stuff. So yeah. So that is black in terms of, I'm going to undo this as well because I'm going to copy it into a file. Here's an even more extreme example. So now, I've run this, I have my tax function, and now I want to actually apply it. So I've got a few bands, it's basically marginal tax rate bands. So, 20%, we've got some standard deduction here, then a 20% rate, 40% rate, 45% rate, and we want to calculate the tax for the range of incomes. So this is like a really long line. You might think, should I group the ones that have more of a pattern together, and then like some of these other weird ones on the same line as well. So here's same thing. You can just do format cell, and it kind of makes it long here, which might not be everyone's first choice, but you don't have to think about it. I think it's actually, I've kind of grown on this, because if you have a comment for a specific item in the list, you can just put that in, and you don't have to worry about like commenting out another value or something like that. So super easy to use within Jupyter Lab once you install the utility, which I'll drop in the show notes for the blog and the YouTube video here. I'm going to undo this as well again. So
a quick question here. With that, so I guess that is also not configurable, that putting each element of an array on its own line.
Correct. Yep.
If you have multi-dimensional arrays, does it do the same thing?
Yeah, let's give it a shot. So I'll just copy this a few times, or I'll copy this maybe. Oops. So it does that. Let's see, I guess, if each one is really long, let's see what it does there. Oops.
Okay, interesting. Okay. So if it's a multi-dimensional, it kind of puts like one of those dimensions, a vector on a line, if it fits. Otherwise, it does the one. Okay. Yeah, I could see this getting really long with some large multi-dimensional arrays, but I agree there are some real pluses here. The commenting on the line, and also when somebody is changing a value, you can clearly see what they're changing, what element in that array is changing, rather than just seeing a whole line that changed that might have many values on it.
Totally. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of think if you're doing this on a routine basis, it's probably a good time to like import CSV files because they're basically like data that you have in your code. So that's not always the case, but yeah, I definitely have grown on this approach, or this approach has grown on me. Cool. So I'm going to copy this into some code, and actually I'm going to make a new repo because we'll get to see how we set up this pre-commit hook. So create Black demo. Just looking at Rick's.
I can wait on that question. I just put it in the chat so I can remember to come back.
Huh. That is, yeah, so the question is, in case it's not in the recording.
Do you want me to just restate it really quickly?
Yeah, sure. Let's see if it does. I'm pretty sure it won't. But
so in looking at how to build Conda packages on Conda Forge, in the YAML file, they have a requirement that there's a space before logical operators. Like if you're saying Python greater than or equal to some version, a space before the logical operator and then no space after. And I thought that Black was more configurable than you're saying. I thought you can go in and turn off selectively turn off pieces of it.
No, yeah, Black, the only thing you can do is the line length. So other formatters will allow that, but Black won't. Like, yeah, I don't think there's a way to make this compliant.
Well, does Black though? It's just formatting Python scripts, right? Not YAML files or.
Right. Yes.
Okay, so it's limited to just the Python language at this point.
Yes.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah. Good point. Okay, so we've got our Black demo thing here, and let's see. Whoops. Okay, so I'm going to copy this touch test.py, code test.py, and we got this here. So this is going to be the same thing, but oops, I formatted it. Oh, I guess not too much. So we'll make this look like, yeah, so we've got some, and I'll grab this in here too. We'll even do it on the same thing. So this is really ugly. So one thing we can do, let's just save this actually. We are going to commit it so that we can see what it looks like on Black demo. Add file. Oh shoot, I did this in a branch. Let's try this again. Okay. So now it should work. Okay, and I'm going going to upload this. We're going to make a quick part. So you can see I gave this a shot before. So black demo, we got our test dot, darn. Oh, what did I do here? There's no master branch. Okay, that's, I'm gonna try this again. Okay, so no. Okay, so now we can, let's test, try this again. Okay. Okay. Okay, I didn't get this right, but that's fine. I think what we can do is first of all, just see how this looks. So there's actually a format document. There's format document width, so you can use this with different formatters as well. It will just tell you that black is the one that's installed. There's actually a keyboard shortcut which I end up using a lot, which is just a Control-Shift-I. And there you go. So I just sort of do this compulsively every few lines of code, especially if I'm doing like, you know, I like to type in single quotes. It's just, I find it easier. So I'll just do this, and then it goes back to double quotes there, which is nice. So now I can save this and make changes or run black. Okay, so let's see this. Cool, so this looks good. I guess I'm going to make a new branch. We'll call this change. And hopefully this will let me do an actual pull request. So what I'm going to do here is now use black as a linter. Jason, I just realized we are probably going to run a bit over. I can wrap it up at 9, or how you prefer.
Yeah, that's fine. If you're a few minutes over, no worries. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So here I just sort of go to the black documentation. So they've got a bunch of stuff you can use this with. The first thing we're going to do is create a lint GitHub action. So this basically just runs black every time you push or pull requests. So this will make sure that the code is compliant. So this is a nice way to make sure everyone in your repo is using the black formatter, even if they don't have it installed necessarily, at least that their changes are not going to violate black. Okay, so we're gonna have to make our GitHub folder, make our, it's called workflows, and then we're gonna touch that /black.yaml. And now we can add this in here. So add black workflow. Cool. So now, let's run this. So now I can request. Great. This is initial workflow here. What I'm going to do to make this a little more interesting, this takes like 30 seconds to run or so. But so we can see that pass, and then let's see, test 2. Got too much up here. Okay, so I'm going to undo the whole black thing. So now if I save this as part of the change workflow, oh, it already worked. Okay. So so we can see where it went wrong here. Yeah, I guess this was a line length thing. So that's cool. Oh, that is because I have the black. I have a different line length on my computer 79 here. I would have to set it to 88 on the workflow. So yeah, I guess I changed something compared to my demo. But that's fine. We can, it's nice to be able to see that. So the other thing we can do is we can make this a pre-commit hook. So this is going to make sure that every time I run a commit, it's actually going to check that that's black compliant, and it's actually going to make the change if it isn't done already. So the way to do this is you have to install a tool called Precommit. Then you add this YAML file. And so I'm going to do that, touch.precommit config.yaml. And grab this here. So, and now we do a pre-commit install. So now it's going to pre-commit this. So if I do this, let's see, back to test2.py, and let's make some small change here that won't like. So pre-commit and just actually said that failed. So because something, because the quotes were off. So you can show the, but actually you can see that it reformatted it by itself. So this is pretty awesome. I didn't have to run black myself with the keyboard shortcut in VS Code. It just did it. So make sure that every time before you commit, it doesn't let you commit some bad code. So that's kind of all the integrations I wanted to show. We've got, and I guess you can also see how this would work running black from the command line. It would just be black space the name of the file. But we've got our Jupyter Lab, Jupyter Notebook, VS Code, and then GitHub Actions to lint it. And then you've got a pre-commit hook to make sure you're not committing bad code. So I'll just wrap up with a couple of drawbacks. We've talked about these. So it's not in Google Colab. This is a tool I use a lot just for doing quick Jupyter Python work. It also does pollute the Git blame when you're viewing in GitHub. So you can basically run black. This is the way they recommend it. If you're trying to move a project over to black, that you run black on the entire repo in a single commit. And then you can basically save that commit and exclude it from the Git CLI. But it doesn't work in GitHub yet. It might do something you don't exactly love, but you can just kind of, I've learned to be zen and focus on the programming and less on the aesthetics. which in general, I'm a big fan of the aesthetics of black. So we're starting to dip our toes in this. So far, I'm pretty happy with it. So param tools is one library, tax data, and microdf, we are all using black, including this pre-commit hook. So we're kind of talking about transitioning other projects. If I was starting a new project, this is definitely something I would do. But I'm curious what you all think, especially PSL contributors, and how this can help focus on programming. So thanks so much. Sorry, I went a bit over.
Max, this is excellent. Thank you.
Any questions?
I have one, and that is your preferred way to implement this on your own? Do you do the command line interface or in VS Code?
I use VS Code.
Command Shift I.
With the exception being if I were to reformat a whole directory.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Makes sense.
So if you have the pre-commit hook, is that going to pollute the git blame? So any changes it makes, so there's going to be attributed to black and not the person who is submitting the pull request?
Yeah,
so
I think
the changes in the code that black has made, does that get attributed to black?
I think it only runs on files that are being edited in the commit, but it will, yeah, if you have a file that you don't want to be transitioned, then you probably don't want to use. I think in general, pre-commit hooks, you would only use that in a repo after you've already transitioned the whole repo, because you have to add that YAML file within each repo.
But even after you've transitioned it, if I submit a pull request and it's not formatted properly, the pre-commit hook's going to reformat it automatically, and then those will show up, those will be attributed to black, right?
Yeah, which is why I think you only want to do that after you've done it for the whole repo.
Yeah, well, Rick, it won't let you do the commit until it'll run that formatting. So you'll say git commit, and then it'll run that format. And then if it has to make changes, then you have to add those changes and then rerun the commit. And so it won't let you actually make a commit until you've formatted the changes. And so I have a code style set up from pre-commit param tools too. So I can't make a commit until the code has been formatted properly and the code style tests have passed. And so then that ensures that your Git history is never thrown off.
Does that also require that nobody can collaborate on that repository? Well, no, so anyone, either you have black on your machine and you're making sure it's conformable before you submit a PR, or you submit a PR and you just let the pre-commit hook do some work automatically changing it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Love the presentation, Max. I definitely pro having black being used more in PSL projects. It's very nice.
Thanks.
All right, Max. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Everyone, take care.
Take care.